This is a continuation of the story that I started about the cave in the Peruvian mountains, the shaman, how I failed the divine miserably, and how I became determined. Part 1 is my first visitation to that cave, which if you didn't see it yet, go back and watch it. It's fascinating. Part 2, I talked about other times that I've been taken back, left my body, transported to this mysterious cave. And each time this happened, I was like catapulted forward in my service to humanity. And part 3, this part is a little bit longer because something very recently happened to me. Now, if you've been with me a little while, you know in recent times I've been channeling a lot of information from the great saint and avatar Mataji from India, who is the sister of Babaji. And she was mentioned in the book by Yogananda, Biography of a Yogi. And she's been cocooned in this cave, similarities in the Himalayas, in spiritual ecstasy and perfecting rays of light that will help humanity. So I've been working with her, and just recently I had an experience where I was just taken out of my body, catapulted back to this cave. It was a lengthy experience. And this is the only time that someone has been with me. Who took me to the cave? It was the high priestess of Atlantis, when Atlantis was submerged. Now, Totemy is the father of Thoth, the Atlantean, who wrote the Emerald Tablets over 36,000 years ago. If you've been with me a while, you know that I've channeled material in from Thoth the Atlantean about the Emerald Tablets. So, what in the world is Thotme, father of Thoth, doing with me, taking me to this cave that I had never been to before, except by myself? So Thotme says that at the time of Atlantis submersion, that I was his wife, and he dearly loved me. And so that I would not see the destruction of Atlantis, he put me in this state, like a sleeping state of spiritual ecstasy. And that's how I ascended. So Thotme says, we were on a mission, and now we're going to continue that mission. And I've learned my lesson through the first video, if you watched it, part 1, where I failed in my mission to the divine. And I said I would never allow that to happen again. So what happened with me and Totemy inside the cave? Again, we're high in the mountains. The mist is cool on our faces. And he knows exactly where we're going. And he just puts his hand up to the vines over the cave, and they just part. And we enter, and it was really dark in there, and my eyes became adjusted to the light, and I saw those same walls. They're kind of shiny, burnt sienna with the etchings. This time something was different. Totemy says, learn. This is the language of your forebears. Now, the etchings became associated with my consciousness, and I started thinking about happy things, and the etchings started to dance and light up. And it was so real, the etchings dancing and lighting up. And then suddenly my thoughts turned to, Oh, I'm here. I'm so happy. I'm reunited with my Totemy, my husband from Atlantis. And there's war going on in the world. There's all kind of things happening. And here I am being all happy. Guess what? The etchings started to droop. The light went out. And Totemy says, you see, these etchings are associated with your consciousness. Now, I'm not sure about what all that means, but I suddenly became very tired and I lie down on the floor of the cave. Totemy came up with some soft coverings. I don't know. I think the man is magic. And we slept together on the floor of the cave. And in the early morning, it was so early, the gray light softly filtered through. He brought me a cup of minty tasting tea, hot tea. Where he got it again, I don't know. I was so happy and blissful. I'm in the cave with my long lost husband. It feels so right and so good. I didn't question the etchings on the wall, them dancing around or them drooping. It felt so right and good. And it was 100% real. And I was 100% awake. Now, the story continues. As Totemy says to me, I have something to show you. But you're going to have to hold your breath for a moment. And I'm thinking, hold my breath. Anyway, the minute he says that, water started to come into the cave. And it was rising and rising, and I'm not a good swimmer. And an opening appeared in the back of the cave. And the water started rushing. But for a moment, we had to go through the opening, and the only way to get through it was underwater. And so he says, hold your breath, it'll be just a moment. And he held my hand, and we went out of the entrance of that cave, and we emerged in a large cavern, enormous cavern. And I hear this humming like emanating from a giant crystal. Now, I wouldn't say it was giant in size. It was quite a circumference and tall, but the capstone was missing. You know how a crystal usually has a point like that? That's what Thotme says. He says, my love, the main crystal that powered Atlantis was not destroyed. It is here, and this is it. Now, know this, there were many crystals that powered Atlantis. This was the main one, untold power. And it's connected to everyone who's ever been part of Atlantis, whether it was you or an ancestor, another lifetime, another dimension. This crystal is like a supreme intelligence. And so Thotme and I simply sat in the presence of this crystal for a while. And it is readjusting and harmonizing my DNA, because I'm human. I'm not in the spiritual dimension completely yet. And Thotme says to me, Rebecca, I'm going to show you how to bring people here, because we're building up the belief of humanity again. And each time that someone is brought here, it increases the magnetic force that is seeking the capstone. The capstone is not on the crystal now. It's in a secluded place. Even Thotme does not know exactly where, but he says the belief of the people that you bring here that are willing to make a sacrifice, and I'll talk more about that in the next video, will magnetize the capstone and cause it to be brought here to complete this crystal. And when that happens, my love, much good for humanity will be forthcoming. Much good for humanity will be forthcoming, and it is our mission. You see, my love, all those years ago, when you were guided to come here, you weren't really ready. You needed to learn. You needed to learn to trust your divine guidance. Now you have learned. And now our mission together is to help magnetize the capstone back into the place of power so that the Atlantis crystal will once again be complete, whole, vibrating power. And that is the end of part 3. I'll be back soon and tell you what Totemy told me about bringing certain individuals here in spirit, and how perhaps your heart might be calling you to do this. It is not up to me. There's no selling. It is not up to me. It is up to you, your heart, your divine guidance. And that's the end of part 3. Much love. And I can't wait to share how maybe we can have this experience together.